Yeah, you're about 3 to 5 pounds away from my heaviest ever was like 218 to 220. That was definitely a fluffy state of existence for sure.
You see some people bulk and then they gain nothing, right?
Right.
Like they just fat and they cut down, and it's like, oh well, shit, that was all. That was a waste.
Right,
Uh,
right.
and I think if I haven't gone above 20%, that's sort of my personal cap
Mhm.
where I don't like. I mean, I could go. I've gone up till maybe 22, 23 because I was 212 like 2 years ago,
Okay.
and I was not as like I didn't have any vascularity, any biceps vein, any definition anywhere.
I didn't
So
realize you were that heavy previously.
yeah. I mean, I've bulked and cut before. It's just sort of how I've always done things. And so I've been up to 210, 212,
Mm.
but it was a fluffy state of existence,
Right, right.
even compared to now. And and that's just how it works. Like you go up to a peak body weight heavier than you've ever been before, and then you either recomp or you main gain or you eventually cut down, and then every time you hit a new body weight, you're slightly better looking, better body composition at that same weight, and
Yeah.
that's probably the best way to track progress. And
Yeah, you're
those guys
about 3 to 5 pounds away from my heaviest ever was like 218 to 220. That was definitely a fluffy state of existence for sure. But I hit my strongest numbers then, or at least close. I've since hit like random PRs here and there at a lighter body weight. But as you alluded to, though, because you're, I think, how many years into training now? 7?
7, yeah.
Yeah. So when I did it, it was like 12 years in, maybe even 13 years in. So it's kind of like a last ditch effort. Like, let's see what I can gain 40 pounds, over 2 years. I took my time. And when I cut down, I pretty much netted nothing. So that was when I
Damn.
basically called it. I was like, you know what? I don't know if it makes sense to do that anymore. But I do think that for your first, let's say, 10 years or so, it definitely makes sense and will probably be the fastest way to, hitting your peak potential.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think I wasted quite a bit of time from cutting too much and trying to maintain too lean of a physique because I maintained not under 10%, but near 10%, like 10 to 11% with like veins all in my abs and like
Hmm.
glutes starting to come in and not stage condition, but like kind of getting there, right? Like
Yeah.
your face starts to get gaunt and just you start to notice weird veins, like the cross veins in the biceps, where it's not just that one vein, but it's like
Right, right, right.
it's ridiculous veins. And I maintained that condition for like 6 months or something,
Well,
and but I didn't make any progress,
sure.
and I didn't feel
Hey, you
great. I
kind of
felt okay.
regressed, right?
Well, I regressed from my previous strength before that, but I kind of just flatlined the entire time. I was
Okay.
just sort of treading water, basically.
And then Alex, what's the heaviest you've bulked up to?
Like if we're talking about a bloated state versus
Yeah, yeah, just like the heaviest you've been.
like on a scale period, like 191,
Wow. Okay. And you're how tall?
5'5.5".
Yeah. So that's a big, a big
Yeah,
I
boy
was
for
very
sure.
fluffy, you know,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
that's why you got to do the illusion strategies to look leaner than you actually are, grow out your beard, all that good stuff.
Right, right, right.
But I think, like Jeff said, you got to have a range that you're not going to exceed.
Hmm.
And I think 20% is a good cap for most people.
Yeah.
Really going beyond that point is if you're searching for a strength PR and you just don't care. You're like, you know what? If I got to gain 5 more pounds of body fat, but it's going to add that last 5 pounds to my bench, okay, fine.
Yeah.
You know, it might not be worth the trade off, but at least you'll get your number.
Right, right. No, I think that's very reasonable. And then I know, I don't remember the time you did. I mean, I think it was recently. You had cut down to like 145-ish. Is that right?
145 dry. So that's like with the water protocol and everything. So it's
Okay.
not how you're going to be every single day.
Yeah. So your walking weight would be like in the 150s then?
Yeah, like 150 exactly.
Yeah. And how long have you been lifting total now?
Oh, a long time, over a decade.
Okay. So do you feel, because that's one of the things I will often talk about. I mean, obviously it's recognized that, your first 5 to 7 years, you're going to get almost all of it and then it slows down. Do you feel like at this point you're able to make net progress? Like not, hey, I'm picking a new unique exercise and gaining strength, but like I'm actually putting on new muscle mass?
Absolutely, to the point where my expectations are higher than ever before. I'll say this: I don't believe in the natural limit.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe that progress will continue, just at a very slow rate, such a small rate that you might as well call it a limit. So if
Sure.
you're adding 5 pounds a year to your bench press, that's nothing really, but it adds up year after year. If you
Sure.
do that between 25 till 40 years old without getting injured, that's a lot of PRs. And you know, you see those muscle gaining charts, and they say after 5, 10 years, you're gaining so minuscule amounts that you might as well not calculate it. Why? I find it's worth calculating if you actually plan on doing this for decades at a time. If this is a short-term pursuit, of course it's not going to be worth it. So it's the years that add up where you see the physical changes. Obviously, you know, from 2022 till 2023 or even 2024, most of us naturals are going to look relatively the same, maybe some minor improvements. To say there's going to be no progress, I don't believe that. And I'm still making gains after all this time. And the longer you train, the more you optimize your stuff.
Do you
Make it
measure that
smarter.
mostly through strength progress? Do you take, like, I know Jeff and I are both pretty big on muscular measurements. Is that something that you take as well?
Measurements and strength progression. But
Mhm.
really, the progressive overload, you have to trust the process, because that ensures the measurement will go up. If you take your bench press from 315 to 350, chances are something's going to go up in your body, whether it be your delts, your triceps, your shoulders.
Yeah.
There's going to be a minor increase. You'll never be the exact same measurement in most cases.
Yeah. Well, no, I agree. If assuming that you take an exercise, again, that's not new, right? You have all those initial neurological adaptations. You take a long-standing exercise and you're gaining strength for reps over time. That's like the almost like the fine way that I could pretty much guarantee you're growing, right? I mean, that's almost has to happen from increased muscle mass.
Like Jeff always says, it's objective,
Yeah.
and the goals that he set this year, you're going to see the size reflected in that,
Yeah.
guaranteed.
Well, I think
Yeah.
that's, go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah. So I think that some people are sort of pessimistic about the gains you can keep making from like year 5 to year 10. Because I've seen some people, even content creators who I respect, where they make it seem like past 3 years, you're basically making tiny improvements or nothing at all. And I haven't found that to be the case, because, it's easy to get your newbie gains, but then like your intermediate gains, a lot of people mess up. Right. And so they get the newbie gains because everyone gets them, like you'll get them doing a lot of different stuff. But then once you're an intermediate, you actually have to optimize stuff. You have to actually be very mindful of your progression. And, past like 10 years, that's where things are going to slow if you've been optimizing things. But like in that 5 to 10 year window, I think you can still make pretty good progress. And then like even past 10 years, there's always like, in terms of just how much muscle mass you have, like there are some areas that, who trains their hip flexors, right? Like, there's probably a decent amount of muscle mass.
Neck gains,
Maybe,
right? We'll talk about that too.
like your psoas and your TFL and all those little, like someone said, oh, I have my TFL, which is like a hip flexor on the outside of the hip. I was doing front squats and it like poked out of the side, and someone's like, what the hell is that? And it's just like a weird muscle that I have from running, right? Because that's used, running is a lot of hip flexion, whereas lifting is a lot of hip extension, right? Squats, deadlifts, etc. Who trains their hip flexors? Almost no one, but that might be, I don't know, 500 grams of muscle mass,
right.
worth of taking, right?
Yeah. I think